We got about 6 minutes, and we'll be talking with Robbie Crane.
They get turned around. It's in the mouthpiece.
No, it's...
Hello?
Hello, Robbie. This is Robbie Crane.
That's me.
Hey, how are you today? This is Timothy Spider from the band Wet Thing. We're live on our show, broadcasting right now in Chicago.
Right on. How you doing, Tim?
Good, man. Good.
You're going to have to pick that up. I can't.
Ora can't hear you.
Hi, Robbie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing all right, baby. How you doing?
I'm alive and kicking.
All right. That sounds good, baby.
Listen, I'd like to cover some of your history, if you don't mind.
Sorry?
Go back in time for you.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, when did you first get the urge to play the bass? What was like the major influence that you just kind of woke up and said, today's the day?
I think I was, 14 or 15. I grew up in Hollywood, California, so a lot of the scene was kind of thriving in the early 80s. And about 1984, we had come back from, a bunch of friends and I went to see Motley Crue at the Santa Monica Civic on the Shout the Devil tour. And I think it was 84, and we just leaving that concert made us all, a bunch of friends and I say, you know what, we're going to start a band. This is the thing to do. The chicks are hot, and we wanted to be rock stars. So that was the first thing that made. We all picked our instruments. My dad had played bass guitar in his early days, and we had one laying around the house, so I just started to pick it up and kind of learn the Van Halen and whatever early Motley albums I can get my hands on. And then I discovered Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, and that was the end.
You got it. Yeah, I remember my first day. I'm a musician, so it was like I heard Jimi Hendrix, and that was it. I knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Yes. When I actually decided to play, that was that time. But hearing, growing up in a house of music, absolutely, like Hendrix, for me it was Cream. My dad was a big Jack Bruce fan, so I would hear Cream all the time, and that really got me going. You know what I mean? I was into that, and Hendrix, and Zeppelin and Sabbath. My dad had Masters of Reality and Volume 4 from Sabbath, and we'd listen to that when I was a kid. So yeah, that made me know I was going to be a musician as a kid. But when I actually picked it up was in the 83, 84.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, now, I heard that your first instrument was given to you by your father on your 14th birthday, I do believe. And I wanted to find out what brand that guitar was. Do you remember and what color it was?
Absolutely. It was a Memphis Les Paul copy, and it was a cream color. That was the first guitar he ever bought me. I started out on guitar because my dad was a musician as well. Told me it would be, although I wanted to play bass, he told me it would be better to play guitar first because then I would get the general idea of what the guitar was doing, and bass would come easier to me later. So that was the first guitar he had ever purchased for me. It was at the Fairfax Music School in Hollywood on Fairfax and Santa Monica. And then we later went back to that very same place and bought a Memphis precision bass copy, probably about 2 months later.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. How did you meet Bobby Blotzer, and how did the Rat actually come about with that? Did it just kind of evolve with you guys, or you were just hanging on the streets, or where'd that all come from?
Well, I initially met Bobby Blotzer in the Roxy bathroom in the early 80s. He was with Ron Keel, and we were all there to see a band called Shark Island. I can't remember what year it was, 82 or 81 or something like that. And, that was when I first met him, and then the next time I ever ran into him again was at rehearsal when I went down to play with the band. And he was a ball of energy.
I hear you. If you had an opportunity to play with somebody right now, you're kind of freelancing right now, I understand.
Yeah, we all are. We're just musicians.
Yeah. And if you had an opportunity to play with a band like Iron Maiden, would you take that opportunity and run with that?
I would never do that. I would never disrespect Steve Harris. If I had the amazing opportunity in 2009, I was doing a show with Michael Schenker at the House of Blues in Anaheim, and Nico from Iron Maiden was there. And in between changeovers, he got up and we played "Where Eagles Dare" together, and man, was that just a treat and a half. Yeah, I mean, I would never imagine myself to be anywhere near the caliber of Steve Harris, but I would be honored to fill in for him if there was ever a situation where I need be.
Oh, I don't know about that. I've heard you play. I think you rip along pretty good there, bud.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're a hell of a guy and a hell of a musician. You were just you were just here in Chicago, and you wrapped up a tour with George Lynch.
Yep, Lynch Mob, yes.
Yeah, and we were talking, and there was another guitar player that you mentioned his name, and I was wondering if you'd like to introduce his name to the. We have quite a few fans and viewers right now. We call them the Cam family. Actually, they're family to us. Introduce that guitarist to them. I don't think they've ever heard of this guy.
Oh, with Ryan?
Ryan.
Gilbach?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Ryan. Yeah. Ryan. Ryan's actually my guitar tech in Rat, and he's a guitar player on his own, and he's played in a few bands around L.A. like Bang Tango and stuff like that. And him and George got hooked up through Brian Tishy from Whitesnake, and we just ended up on this Lynch Mob tour together. And George is such a great musician and such a great person, and wants things to be as great as possible. He always encouraged an offstage guitar player, always wanted to have an offstage guitar player play in the band, backing him on some of the stuff that he did, like Mr. Scary and stuff like that he felt would have more body, with the underlying guitar under what he was doing. So Ryan, luckily was a guitar player and was happy to have him up there. Ryan is a great guy, great guitar player, really cool to play with, and just cool to see a guy like that hasn't had all of the opportunity in his life, be able to play with a great guitar player like George Lynch. I mean, I think it's amazing to see him up there, and with Mick Brown and everybody,
Yeah, very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
One of our fans in the chat room, Tina, would like to know if you like any of the newer bands that are out right now that are like really rocking along in the in the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few bands out there that I really dig. Like, I like As I Lay Dying. I like, the Blackstone Cherry Band. I think they're really happening. There's a lot of younger bands out there that I hear and that I really dig. That I just can appreciate some of the music. Some of the other stuff like Nickelback and stuff. Obviously, that's just the typical stuff that everyone hears and is on the radio now. Believe it or not, I've become quite a fan of a guy named Jared Leto. He's got a band called 30 Seconds to Mars that I think is pretty cool as well. And there's a lot of great bands out there. A lot of the older rock guys from our era get really, really perturbed or annoyed with the, new, quote-unquote, new metal and stuff. But, it's just like when we were kids. It's the changing of the guard, you know what I mean? Motley didn't sound exactly like Sabbath, and Sabbath didn't sound exactly like Cream. But they were bands that preceded them, and it's just every genre for me has their own style of metal or rock. So it's good to see the direction that the music's going in now. Everyone hated the grunge movement from my era, but I liked the grunge movement. I thought Alice in Chains was one of the greatest bands of all time from that era, and they continue to show that, that they'll stand the test of time, and their new record's amazing too. Who would have thought without Lane Staley that Alice in Chains could move on?
Yeah, definitely. I hear you there.
What a great record, though,
Oh, yeah.
Band, just great band. I mean, Gary and Mike and Sean, they're just brilliant musicians, and they really have that body of music that it's unbelievable.
All right. Dave wants to know if you use your fingers or a pick to play your bass.
I started with my fingers. I was a huge Steve Harris fan as a kid, and my initial thing was, the pick as a guitar player. It just didn't get the gallop that I was looking for. So when I was about 14 or 15, I kind of got into a 3-finger gallop. So I used 3 fingers traditionally as my primary thing. But like when I played with Vince Neil from Motley Crue, I did his 2 solo albums. I did everything on that with a pick. So I used both. I mean, I'm try to perfect both as best I can.
Very cool. Very cool.
Absolutely. With those roto sound strings, it sounds great.
Oh, definitely. You get, the DJs use three fingers to get what they call the crabs, where you get that ba-da-dum, 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 and they get that little zippa.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how they do it.
What is that, guitar talk?
Yeah, well, no, it's just, I mean, it's technique, I mean, you use what you use.
I'm just a singer here.
I've been talking a little bit via email with Carrie Kelly.
Absolutely.
On and off. And I've been talking with him about Saints of the Underground.
Yep.
And bringing Saints of the Underground out to our entertainment center out in Esben, Kansas. And I wanted to get your take on Saints of the Underground and how that all came about for you.
Saints of the Underground was a band initially called what was it? I forgot what we were called. It was the Outlaws. We had a cover band, Kerry Kelly, Bobby Blotzer, and I, with John Corabi, and Saints of the Underground. It was called. God, I can't remember the name now. Is that terrible? In my old age, my memory is letting me go. But anyways, we had this cover band, and we had been offered a record deal by a small investor, and in the process of that, we had opted to. John Corabi had opted out and was going to do some other stuff, and so Janie Lane, close friend of all of ours, that Kerry had been working with, had written some songs with, had decided to get involved. So right when that happened, and this is the God's honest truth, the deal had come about, the songs had been starting to be written. I was having my second daughter. So I, unfortunately, was not involved in the writing process, and to be honest with you, was not involved in any of the recording process of that record at all. And my photo had been taken prior to that, just as, because I was part of the band, and Chuck Wright from Quiet Riot had played the bass in the studio and done all of that. So with regard to the Saints of the Underground thing, I wasn't really involved in that other than my photo. And then when the record came out, I was like, okay, my photo's on the record. Chuck Wright had, moved on, and I was still technically a part of it. So that's really the reality of that record. It's a great record. I think Kerry and Janie, it really showcases how great they really are as writers together and how talented they truly are. But I've never played with the Saints of the Underground except for one time. We did a radio show with Kerry, Janie, and a different drummer, Mike Fasano, and I. And it's a great project, man. I think it's a great project. And, I love Kerry and Janie and would love to play with them anytime.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you got a great group there,
Yeah.
I mean, you do. I mean, personality-wise, you guys are great. Musicianship, you're great. I mean, you can't go wrong with something like that,
Yeah.
People, I'll tell you, the vibe off the stage is just as important as the music coming off the stage. If you're not a good person, most people can feel that. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Kerry Kelly and I, we've done a lot of projects together. We did the Adler's Appetite thing back in the mid-2000s. We did that live, the record, with them. And we did Rat together, and we've done a number of things together. Chris Slade, and Kerry's just an amazing musician and an amazing person and an amazing performer. I mean, a great, talented writer. I mean, I really have a lot of respect for Kerry. He's really, 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 really a great guy.
Yeah, you guys are, y'all are very, very, very cool people.
Right on, man.
When we come out to L.A., we're definitely going to have to get together and all have a beer,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Kerry knows the hot spots. He's the beer meister.
That's right.
He does, man. He's like, we were just in Europe this last year, and man, I mean, that guy can smell the greatest breweries or monasteries that make beers. I mean, for miles. He's like, we're in Belgium. There's this great place on the other side of that mountain that does, you're like, what? And you end up at this amazing place with this. He's quite the connoisseur.
He likes his beer.
So you kind of use him like a beer hound, right?
Hey, man, whatever gets us to the well, I'm into it.
Maybe we should breed him and just kind of like sell puppies, right?
Yeah, for the journey for the beer. Yeah, no, Kerry, yeah, he's great.
Yeah, for sure.